What does it mean to be a disciple of Jesus? Like, what does that actually mean practically? It's not exactly an easy question because the Bible doesn't give one single clear-cut definition like this is a disciple. There's actually a letter by Dietrich Bonhoeffer, one of the most brilliant theologians of the 20th century, and he writes in it something to the effect of, what is a disciple of Jesus? That I would like to know. He's admitting that it's a complicated question. In other ways, though, it's not so complicated because God gives us a pretty clear-cut picture in Scripture. Every one of the Gospels shows us the very first disciples of Jesus, like the first 12 guys to follow him and get close to him. We get to see where they go and what they do and how they follow. And sure, they make a lot of mistakes, but they are a template for us. Like in the same way that we look at the early church for our basic model of church, it made sense then that we would look at the 12 disciples and see what they were doing and then do that, like minus the mistakes and the rebukes. So then look at the disciples for a second. Think about these three very obvious characteristics of their following of Jesus. Number one, they are always around him, like they are always around Jesus. They saturate their lives with his presence. They are like flies. They just don't leave him alone. Like in almost every event in the Gospels, apart from the crucifixion and the resurrection, Jesus' disciples are there. He heals a paralytic. Disciples are there. Dinner with a tax collector. Disciples are there. He walks on water. Disciples are there. He stills the sea. Disciples are there. Feeds the 5,000. Disciples are there. Feeds the 4,000. Disciples are there. Gets arrested. The disciples are there. So really simply, to follow Jesus is obviously to physically follow and be around Jesus. For us then, though, who are separated from his physical presence now, it means seeking his presence in every way we can, through prayer, through scripture, through fasting, through solitude, through the church, Christian community, just trying to be around Jesus. According to the example of the 12, following Jesus means obsessively getting around Jesus and staying around him. Number two, the disciples are always learning from him. The word disciple means one who learns through instruction. So as his disciples, then, they are learners who are actively learning, trying to learn. They are watching him. They're asking him questions. They're trying to learn from him, to absorb from his teaching. So Matthew 6, the disciples say to Jesus, teach us to pray. Like, let us learn from you how to pray. Mark 7, they ask him about the parable that he just told, things which proceed out of a person that defile him. Mark 10, they asked him about divorce. John 9, they asked about a blind man who sinned, him or his parents. They're asking questions and wrestling with the things he's doing and saying, trying to learn from him. So then again, just as simple as the first one, to follow Jesus is to be around him and to learn from him. And again, I would say obsessively, like first primary, all in priority in our lives is being around Jesus and learning from him, reading, wrestling, asking questions, growing in our understanding of what he did and taught. Finally, number three, the disciples are always trying to imitate him. Like learning from Jesus is useless if that's where it ends. If we stop at number two, we've missed it. No, we learn so that we can do. We learn in order to imitate. Because disciples are imitators. We are essentially apprentices, learning so that we can do. And the most perfect picture of this is Peter in Matthew 14, 22-29. Jesus and the 12 have just finished a long day. They have fed the 5,000, 5 loaves, 2 fish. The disciples get into a boat to head to the other side of the lake, and Jesus goes up on the mountain to pray by himself. Around midnight, he comes out to them while they are just floating in their boat, sleeping. Maybe someone is still fishing. And they see him and they are terrified, which is exactly probably how we would react in the same situation. But the figure quickly identifies himself. He says, take courage, it is I, don't be afraid. But Peter isn't so sure. He's skeptical of the identity of this floating figure. And so he says to him, Jesus, if it is actually you, then as our teacher, command me to do what you do. And so Jesus says, come, and Peter steps out and he starts walking on the water just like Jesus. And that is a perfect picture of a disciple. Like Jesus commands and Peter responds in obedience. And through the power of God, for a moment, he is doing what his master does. He's not becoming God. He's not becoming Christ, but through his obedience and God's power, he's becoming like him. He's being transformed little by little into Christ's likeness. He is imitating him. He's learning and doing. Listen, I think we have a tendency to think too hard about what it means to follow Jesus. And we become so unsure of what he wants of us. We're trying so hard to search out his will for us, to figure out his calling for our lives, that we can end up doing nothing and just standing still. But it doesn't have to be so complicated. Like, the call of God is simple. It's the same as it was to the 12. It's that you would follow, that you would be his follower. And this is the basic template of following that he gave us via his 12 disciples, that we would be devoted to being around him, learning from him, and by the power of his Spirit doing what he does. And maybe there's more than that, but I'm convinced that if we could just focus on and do those things, that would be enough.